I didn't know what to do now. Everything was bad. My mindset, my mental health, my body was screaming at me. I had to use a stick to walk because I couldn't stand upright for more than, 20 seconds, couldn't walk longer than 100 meters with the stick. I had severe POTS, brain fog, anxiety. My problem was always, I did some activity, I was fine with that activity, but it caused symptoms. And because I was anxious of symptoms, you feed that feedback loop in the brain. Right now I can do 10,000 steps a day, no problem. Working full time, I'm helping out on the farm, I'm riding my motorcycle. I usually go for 100 to 200 kilometers. There's no way of getting out of this if you don't know what's going on. You have to have the knowledge, otherwise you won't get out of this.
How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. Today we have Christoph from Germany, and he's been in the program for 4 months, since April, and he has been absolutely crushing it. He was already gaining lots of traction before he even came into the program, but he just wanted to get to that next level of recovery. Now he's living a fairly normal life physically, but I don't want to spoil everything. I'll let him break that down. Christoph, how are you doing today, man?
Hi guys, you behind the screen. I'm doing good. Everything's fine so far, yeah.
Yeah, doing well. It's been amazing to see your journey unfold. So going back a little bit, you were actually sick for just over a year, right?
Yeah.
At this point? Yeah. So maybe just tell us, like, how did you get sick? What was that beginning stage like? Because I know you were burning the candle on both ends, but then you got COVID. That hits you. So you are technically long COVID, which is basically CFS. Tell us how that all started.
Yeah, my journey started at the beginning of 2021. Yes, I went through a very physically demanding job. I had to work in 3 shifts until I changed that. And in the beginning of 2021, I started that new job. Was learning and struggling at the beginning. Went through a breakup. I was studying on the weekends for my master's degree. To manage that, I skipped sleep on 1 to 2 days per week. Lots of partying at the weekends. And yeah, suddenly I became sick in the middle of the pandemic. This was by the end of April 2021. Yeah, and I saw I had COVID. Yeah, okay, so I stayed home. And while being in my quarantine, I developed my first symptom, which was brain fog. I was very dizzy. Everything looked strange. I continued over the summer, but over the time of the following 6 months, I got worse and worse until I hit a wall in September 2021. Yeah, I was pretty couch-ridden, housebound. My condition worsened to the point I had to use a stick to walk because I couldn't stand upright for more than, 20 seconds, couldn't walk longer than 100 meters with the stick. Severe POTS, brain fog, anxiety. I joined the program in April 2022, but was already following you in November 2021 until I read a book in March. This book opened my eyes, and one day later I watched that video of you. What's the difference between a crash and an adjustment period? And all of a sudden everything may click, and I got it. Mm-hmm. What's the problem? What's going on with me? We call it long COVID, but it's very we know that it's nothing new.
Yeah,
it's nothing new.
Very similar to CFS. It's just you've gone over your stress threshold, right?
Yeah. I tried lots of things before. I did tons of supplements. I even did 6 help apheresis sessions where you get a needle in both of the arms and they wash your blood with a machine. Crazy amount of money. It helps some people. Didn't work for me. At the moment I joined your group, I could see the airplane taking off.
This was taking off the runway because you were on the runway. It was going fast, but I guess when you joined, it was just like, then it started to actually come off the runway and take off.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've been crushing it because I think a lot of the concepts really clicked because we were talking about them every single week. Because even when you know this stuff, when you do have these adjustment periods, sometimes it gets a little tricky and the human emotion can come into play. And it's, is this really part of it? Is this really still the same thing? Could it be something else? There's a lot of reassurance we have that we talk about on like the calls and we give you. I mean, the extra support. So when you're at your worst, you mentioned it was like last November, just to give people an idea of, how bad you actually were. You were telling me about that story when you had to get that stick from outside, right? as a walking stick because your POTS was so bad, and then you try walking and you just like collapse in the field because you live on the farm. So your POTS, your heart rate was through the roof pretty much anytime you stood up and tried to move around.
I had a resting heart rate lying down of about 60 to 70. That's pretty normal. I heard of people who already have a higher heart rate when lying down. To be honest, I didn't have that. As soon as I sat up, I had 90 to 100. As I stood up, 120 minimum. And when I stopped walking, 150 and higher.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I tried really hard to do a little bit of walking every day, but it got to a point I just passed out while walking. Luckily, I was walking in the meadow, so I fell into the grass.
Yeah.
The next day, I was crawling around the house to get that stick from the tree, which I used to walk.
When you told me about that, I couldn't believe that. And that wasn't too long ago. Wasn't that like earlier this year? Or was that in November?
No, it was earlier this year. It was January, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. That is crazy. Such a difference to where you are now. Did you have a lot of anxiety about your symptoms at the time before you knew most of this stuff?
Yeah, that's the thing that gets people into this, I believe, because it started with one single symptom for me, which was brain fog, or I call it a derealization. And because I was focusing so strong of it, I fed that feedback loop in my brain to cause more symptoms. Yes.
Yeah. So you fell into that downward spiral. What were the doctors saying about it when you were getting this checked out? Because I'm guessing at the time they didn't have protocols for long COVID. They're just throwing every test at you, trying different treatments.
Yeah, my first doctor didn't believe me. He said I was making this up. It's all in my head. We all know that. So I switched doctors. The second doctor, luckily, she believed me. And we were trying IVs, just as you did, I think, very vitamin B12. Maybe.
Yeah, vitamin B vitamins, all that stuff.
Didn't help a single percent. We tried IVs and everything, and a therapy with my own blood. Nothing helped. And so she believed me. And one day I was digging through YouTube because at that time I didn't know what I have. I was digging through the internet and through YouTube, and I came across long COVID, and I went to her and said, hey, look at this. It might be long COVID. I had COVID a few months ago, and she looked at it. Yeah, that's possible. And at that time, I got diagnosed the first time with long COVID. Yeah,
I see. Interesting. And when you first got COVID, it didn't wipe you out right away, right? Like it was bad, and then you got a bit better, but then you sank even deeper a few months after. Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I got COVID. It's like the typical flu-like symptoms I used to get every time. So joint pain, leg pain. I don't get a running nose usually, as I didn't that time. And I was in quarantine for 2 weeks. After 1 week, I was basically fine. And at the last day of my quarantine, I got a panic attack, which led me into this.
That was the trigger. Usually it's a panic attack that like starts that cycle.
I hear that in 70 to 80% of persons, they get a panic attack, and this starts this whole thing off.
Yeah, that's what kicked mine off. Like after that first panic attack, it was never the same, because then there were residual symptoms. I was anxious about my heart rate now. Then I had another panic attack. Next thing, 6 months later, it's just a mess. And you're like on a fast downward spiral. So I'm glad you found my videos, the adjustment period versus a crash one. That's the one that really made it click. And I remember after you watched that, the next day, I think you started your truck, right? You were able to go to your truck, started it, and not fear the symptoms that you were feeling at that point.
My problem was always, I did some activity. I was fine with that activity, but it caused symptoms. And because I was anxious of symptoms, you feed that feedback loop in the brain. And I read the book one day after I saw this video, and right after the video, half an hour later, we had some garbage from the garden, some grass to drive to the woods with the tractor. And I decided, okay, it's not too far. It's maybe 100 meters or 200 meters. I'll do that. And my family already was like, oh, are you sure? Oh, I don't know. And I got on the tractor, did it. Severe symptoms all the time, but I knew what to expect and what would happen.
Yeah. What was that book, by the way, just for everybody watching this right now?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was
allowed
to. Yeah, it's Unlearn Your Pain by Dr. Howard Schubiner. You can also read Unlearn Your Anxiety and Depression. But in that book, he mentions it's the same as Unlearn Your Pain. It's just symptoms.
Totally.
Unlearn your symptoms, basically.
Yeah. So for everybody watching this, would highly recommend to go either listen to that book or read it if you can read, because like in terms of the science behind what's going on, it's similar to what we talk about too. It's just, it goes into way more detail.
It's the same. It's much more detailed, but it's the same.
Yeah. So for you, what made you decide to join this program versus other programs? Because I know there's a lot of stuff out there that talk about helping people with CFS. What was the thing that attracted you to this?
That's simple. I tried other programs and they didn't work. I tried very popular programs. This is my third one, but I love the scientific approach. I'm a very logic thinking person and I'm a very visual learner too. And you make all these crazy diagrams and I love them.
Yeah.
It's easy to understand for me and to get the exact reason of what is going on, how to stop it.
Yeah. And in the simplest way too, because I also try to, like the videos in the modules, some of them are like 3 minutes long or 2 minutes or 4 minutes. And I try to just make it super simple for people because I know they're coming in with brain fog anyways. I don't want to overwhelm them with too much thinking. So if you had to choose a few things, what would you say your top 2 or 3 favorite things about the program?
Yeah, I would say top 3 things are I have a personal contact to the coaches, to you and to Junior. I can ask you whatever I want every time on Discord. I can just text you real quick and I get an answer. That's great. The second thing is I already made some friends within the group. I can have chats with them. Hey, how are you doing? Do you experience this? There's this funny thing. I started the program in the same group as Mitsuo and Joe's since months. He's right 4 to 5 weeks behind me, going through exactly the same things as I did. Just 4 weeks. So he's improving very hard too. Yeah, and the third thing are the calls. This is the best thing for me because I think the main effect is if you get down or if you get adjustment periods, you have this twice a week chance. Just hop on a call and get some confidence from the others. This is the main thing. We do that every week, twice a week. You can ask very special things about your situations. What do the others think of it? Maybe someone has already had that situation and knows how to deal with that. That's very helpful.
I look at the calls as a safety net to keep you from going backwards in recovery or keep you from falling off track. The whole point of the call is to keep the train on the rails, keep it moving in the right direction, but also just give people that support. And you feel like you're part of a team. It's no longer you just doing it by yourself. So when you run into small issues here or there, or some strange symptoms, like you said, or weird things going on, then you could turn to people who are going through a similar situation as you. And these people actually understand too. It's one of the biggest things. And they're very positive. We're very selective on who we let into the program. We want to make sure they're ready for change, but also they're positive. So if you notice the Discord, most of the people, or almost everybody there is very positive. There's no venting like in Facebook groups or forums or things like that.
These, I like to call them networks of doom.
Networks of doom.
Networks of doom. I'm in a support group, but I don't have a look into it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what many of them are. The intention of them is good, but it turns into a network of doom because it's like everybody in there's going through hell. So it's tough. But how impactful is it being on calls with other people going through like this similar situation as you?
Very impactful. Very impactful. I can see you have some members are a little bit forward of you. You can see them, and some of them are a little bit behind. It's great to see every time how are they doing, how am I doing. Yes, I know what he or she's going through.
Here's the fun part. What would you say is different now than before you joined? Mentally, emotionally, mainly physically, what can you do now? What does your life look like now? Like what's your activity levels at compared to before? Because before, like at the beginning of the year, we've already talked about, you needed a walking stick, just getting around the house. Sometimes you were crawling, POT symptoms were through the roof, and you weren't working, right? At that time? Yeah, there's no way you could work, barely functioning. And that was only like 8 months ago. But what kind of things can you do now?
Yeah, back then at the COVID rehab in January, which completely smashed me.
Interesting.
Basically.
Was that like physio or something?
Yes, basically exercise every day. That time I was able to do maybe 1,000 steps per day. If you just try to track your steps one day, it's 1,000 steps is just moving around the house and not very much. Yeah, after I had to do 2,000 to 3,000 steps at the rehab, and after that I could do 600 or even less than before. Yeah,
because they kept trying to push you a bit too hard.
Yeah, they pushed me every day way over the limit. Some days I couldn't leave my room to get something to eat. They had to deliver it. Don't like thinking about that time. Yeah, right now I can do 10,000 steps a day. No problem. Working full time. I'm helping out on the farm. I'm riding my motorcycle.
How far? Tell the people how far you're riding the motorcycle.
On these rides, I usually go for 100 to 200 kilometers.
Yeah, so that's a decent ride.
Yeah, but I started with 5, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Small steps.
Of course. You didn't just go from 0 to 100 kilometers, really.
Yeah, no way.
You built it up to there.
Yeah, basically I'm not there already, but I came far. I came very far. To this point, I can go for spontaneous events, which would have triggered symptoms a few months ago through the roof. But now I can say, okay, let's go. Yeah, going out with my friends on a few days and maybe a little bit longer is okay too. Yeah, I don't want to say I have my life back, but I think I almost have.
Yeah. Physically, most of it's back. Now it's just catching up on the mental side of things. Sometimes it's the last thing to leave for some people, a bit of brain fog, a little bit of derealization, things like that. But like even food, you could eat double cheeseburgers and drink beers and stuff with your friends.
Yeah, I never had a problem with food. Always was much eating. So
Yeah. So right now, going through everything you've gone through, because you've been through some dark times, man, and in a very short period of time too, like you've gone into this illness just under a year and a half. So a lot has changed. It's been the craziest roller coaster you've been on. For people who are in the trenches right now, in the worst parts, what would you say to them? What kind of words of encouragement would you say to them if they're thinking like, oh, I'm never going to get better. I don't know what to do.
Educate yourself. There's no way of getting out of this if you don't know what's going on. You have to have the knowledge. Otherwise, you won't get out of this. Read the book, I said. But obviously, the best way would be join a program like Mikael's and commit to it. Really commit to it. Yeah. And just hang on, guys. You are not alone. There are so many people suffering. So many.
Yeah. And for you, this is a personal question. Were there times that you thought you would never get better, or thought that like, man, this is game over here because I'm stuck. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Were there times you almost felt like you would never get better?
I can remember the day I got home from work. This was a Monday. I was barely able to do my work. I was much worse than now, but worked much more than now. And I got home and I had racing heart rate, lying down, everything's. The room was turning around me, and my mom or my parents had to call the paramedics, rushed me to the hospital, and I was lying down on the floor. And this was the point I was absolutely hopeless. I already searched through the internet. My parents were crying. I didn't know what to do now. Everything was bad. My mindset, my mental health, my body was screaming at me just to be released from the hospital. Man, you're perfectly fine with the blood tests and you are perfectly healthy. And the doc said, yeah, you're not the first ones coming in here.
Oh, really?
At the ER room, you're not the first one. This is just long COVID. You have to wait it out. Yeah. So that was the day I stopped working. So this was in September.
Yeah. So what was going through your mind at that point? Was it like, man, I'm screwed. How am I going to get out of this? Like, doctors can't help me.
No, I was so desperate. No doctor had a solution. I was like, I don't know what's this. Don't know what this is. I have no idea. Yeah, I was remaining in that stage for about a month, but then I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna die because of this.
Yeah.
But I try to avoid saying things like that because it triggers other people. But yeah, I thought this might be the cause of my death.
Totally. Yeah, I thought that so many times I can't even count. But like people look at us today and they're like, we seem perfectly normal, live somewhat normal lives. So it's crazy to think that we actually went through that, but it really did happen and we've been able to dig ourselves out of it. For you, what was the biggest shift in the recovery? Because for you, I think it's when you stopped fearing the symptoms or thinking that you're going to die every time you had symptoms. What was that mind shift like? Because I know it happened after you read the book and then you saw my video shortly after, but in your mind, when you had symptoms come up, what would you tell yourself?
I read the book. It basically teaches what you're teaching. And I got the connection between symptoms and fear towards the symptoms. After that, I really got it. I already got it. And the book also says, if you do certain activities, symptoms might come up. And then right after that, 5 minutes later, I saw your video and you said, if you expand your activity, you get an adjustment period. Symptoms are on your way, not in your way. They are expected. They are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And after I got that, I didn't lose fear completely, but I knew when I got on my tractor, this might cause symptoms, but they are not going to let me go backwards. And this was the mind shift. Your video, basically.
Totally. And I'm glad you saw that video at the perfect time. And for everybody watching this, don't think we're saying, oh, just because you ignore your symptoms, now you have no symptoms. No, The symptoms will still be there. There will still be fear because you can't just turn that switch off like that. It's a process. But once you really understand this inside and out, you significantly drop the amount of fear and anxiety towards the symptoms, which makes them go away a lot faster, or it makes them hit you less hard and they're less intense. But the symptoms don't just go away, and it doesn't mean just ignore them and go out and force yourself to do stuff. It's not what we're saying. But you have to learn to manage the fear around the symptoms when they do come up, because the fear is what keeps you in that cycle and what keeps you in that loop of worry, more symptoms, more worry and fear, more symptoms. And that's how it snowballs out of control and you end up in a crash.
That's the point. And even if you got what's wrong with you, your nervous system is going to throw mad adjustment periods at you. Really mad one. And even at that point, I thought, okay, now I know everything. You can't surprise me. It's a really new symptom. I rushed to Mikael. What's this? And he said, oh, just remain calm. This is a curveball. Oh, I hate it.
Yeah. Just when you think you have it, the brain has very interesting ways to work around it. So, oh, you haven't seen this trick. Boom, let's give him some like tooth pain or something, or some weird symptom he's never felt before. He'll throw curveballs. So, that's where a group like this can help, because when these curveballs do come, they're very unpredictable sometimes. You reach out and will help calm you down and stuff. I had that so many times.
Your brain is always like, fuck, that symptom doesn't work. Let's try this one. And you're going immediately, I don't know that one. Oh man, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's like in a video game, all the bosses moves. But then when you get to new level in recovery, it's like a new level, a new boss. And now that boss has new moves you've never seen before. So it might mess with you a few times. You might have to restart that level a few times, but eventually you learn its tricks and its moves. You learn the curveballs and you know how to deal with them and handle them logically. You're still going to have some kind of fear, because you're human. There's that like small percentage of worry, like, I wonder, is this the one that takes me out? But then you have to deal with that immediately, so you don't go into that downward spiral. Yeah, you've got that pat down. You pretty much, I wouldn't say mastered it. You've almost mastered it. To get to this point, you do have to become very good at being able to see things logically when the symptoms do flare up. And I think that's why you've managed to get this far on your journey. Is there anything else you want to tell people who, let's say someone's in your shoes where you were last November? Is there anything else you want to tell someone who's there right now watching this, who's, holy cow, Christoph, I don't know how you did it, man. It's a miracle. Is there anything else you don't want to say to them?
Yeah, never say you can't get well. Everyone can get well. And in every situation you can get, I see it every week on the calls. There's this Mitsu story. He was very bad. He joined the program together with me.
He had some crazy mind shifts. Yeah, you were there on the first call too with Mitsu. He had trouble sitting up, remember? Next thing he's like, a few weeks later, well, maybe a couple months later, he's running on the beach, skateboarding, doing this and that, got his life back. His mind shifts are pretty crazy.
But I have to say, he went on the call after that. I've got symptoms again. He also has some fear around symptoms, guys. So it's okay.
People recovering have symptoms or have fear. It's totally normal, but they don't let the fear control them. And that's how you keep moving forward. You just have to constantly handle the symptoms and the fear with logic. Just constantly remind yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process, but that hard work needed during that time of recovery is so worth it, because that's going to set you up for success to really get your life back. So it's not easy to do it. That's why many people stay stuck for years. But once you start doing it, it's totally worth the extra effort that you have to put in.
Yeah, guys, hang in there. There's a way out. Can just recommend this way. It's the best way in my opinion.
And last question so far, because you've been in the program for about 4 months now, would you say it's been a good investment?
Yeah. Nothing to add.
Good investment. There you go.
Maybe I want to say one thing to you guys out there. I had so many people. You go to Mikael's website, fill in the survey, and then you don't book a call. Don't do that. That's a mistake. Book the call. Get on the call with him. It changed my life. Just be brave this one time.
We'll help you get there. And now, thanks so much, Christoph, for hopping on here and sharing your story. It's a huge inspiration to everybody watching this right now. Hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, leave a comment down below. I think you're the first person I've interviewed or shown on this channel who has long COVID. And there's so many people out there. I think right now there's probably 60 to 70% of people who apply into the program have long COVID. It's the main reason for getting the CFS. So it's very common nowadays. So you're going to be a huge inspiration to people who have gone through that. And so It's going to be cool to see the response. So if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below. Make sure to hit that like button. If you want to check out more recovery videos, make sure to stay after. I'm going to make a playlist of other people who have recovered. But other than that, always remember, you are just one mind shift away from living a life of thriving health. See you guys in the next video.
Thanks.